Welcome back to another episode of Bike Weekly. As always, my name is Ryan Gerard, and I'm here with my co-host Rick Grunwald. Rick, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty well, Ryan. Just actually got back from golfing, one of my many non-bike related side hobbies. So couldn't ask for a better day today. What about you, man? How are you doing?
I'm having a really pretty good week. It's finally come to the point all year. I guess we had, the Tour de France, we had the Giro, we had the Vuelta, but we have more racing, and that's why this is a special episode. We get to talk about two different, very unique races. I know we were going to talk about one, but I also wanted to bring up the PTO Challenge Daytona Triathlon that happened this weekend as well. Besides that, we're also going to talk about the Zwift World Championships.
Ah, nice. Yes, sir. It's December and normally it's just cyclocross season and in most situations we'd probably be talking about just off-season training and what's going on there. But it's a different year, man, and it seems like November and December are great months now for e-racing and I guess off-season triathlons.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this because both these two events I think are kind of the future. Zwift being a big up and coming racing series with being in COVID, being in lockdown, you can't race outside. I think this has a significant place in bike racing. On the triathlon side, the PTO is the Professional Triathlon Organization. They do massive prize pools for professional triathletes, and this race specifically had over $1 million in prize money, and it brought in different types of pro triathletes. They have short course and long course triathletes. Um, it's free to watch, which is also awesome. Both these events are free to watch, and if you've never seen a triathlon race, this is the race to watch. It is exciting from start to finish.
Well, yeah, with that, Ryan, how about I didn't get a chance to watch this triathlon event. So why don't you talk about that one first, and then
Yeah,
after that, since we both watched the Zwift World Champs, after that we'll discuss the Zwift World Champs.
sure. So I'll start off with over $1 million in prize money,
Insane.
equal payout. Yeah, equal payout for men and women. First place gets a whopping 100 grand,
I mean, that's
and
for a triathlete, even a professional
yeah,
triathlete, that's very good. I mean, that can make your entire year. That can, I mean, that's I would have to assume that that's pretty close to like the salary of a maybe a top 10 triathlete in the
yeah.
world.
If you're top 10 at Kona, you're probably in the range of 100,000.
Yeah.
But
So I mean that's
that's like a top 10.
so with that, I mean, was that drawing the biggest names in the sport? Is that
It
like
brought, like, I wouldn't say every big name, because there was a few big names that were left out only because of COVID. They couldn't get to the United States, but they had a significant amount of every big name in every aspect of triathlon. So you have short course, which is the Olympic distance. Then you have half Ironman and you have Ironman. And the distances of each event are a little bit different than it was the closest thing to a half Ironman, uh, but a little bit different distances. It was a slightly longer swim and a slightly shorter bike and run. So it was, I think, just over 2,000 meter swim to a 50-mile bike to a 11-mile run. And the cool thing is it's all done within the Daytona Speedway. So there's actually a lake in Daytona Speedway that they swam in. And the
interesting?
lake is there because it's where they took the dirt to make the embankments of the racetrack.
Oh, okay.
So they did 2 laps in the lake, then they did 20 laps around the Daytona Speedway, and then they did 4 laps of running around the Daytona Speedway. It was really cool to watch because the short course triathletes all went out hard in the swim and actually gapped most of the long course triathletes. Lionel Sanders is the kind of was the big name for the long course, and same with Tim O'Donnell. Tim O'Donnell was actually able to keep up in the swim, who is an American. Lionel
Mm.
Sanders was off the back by about 3 minutes in the swim from the front,
Wow.
but he put in a massive bike.
Known
It
for being
was
quite the cyclist.
known for being quite the cyclist. He stole actually quite a few KOMs from Phil Guyman.
Wow. Impressive.
Yeah, he took the Mount Lemon KOM from Phil Guyman. I believe he was kind of went viral in the cycling community for doing that. He's been on GCN a few times, or like they've talked about him on GCN a few times.
Canadian hour record holder as well.
Yep, Canadian hour record holder. But yeah, put in a massive bike on the front guy who is like the guy. His name's I can't even remember his name right. Alistair Brownlee. Alistair Brownlee.
Okay.
He is like the guy in short course triathlon, the guy to beat, and he gained like 2 minutes on him in the bike. Came into the run just behind. I think he was like a minute behind the leaders, and actually did like a 5:30 mile for 11 miles,
Wow.
and ended up being in fourth place. So he actually went from like 40th, 30th or 40th in the swim to fourth place in the run.
Pretty impressive. I mean, I don't know a lot about triathlon, but to come back from that far back seems to be quite the effort.
Yeah, it was humbling to say the least watching these guys do this, because like the speed that they swam at is like national level swimming, and then these guys can, on the bikes they're as fast as world tour guys on the bikes, and then in the run it's like, five the guy who won did a 5:15 mile for 11
That's
miles
insane. I mean,
after after
you've got to be world class
after
in three sports.
yeah, that's essentially what you have to be, is a world class in three sports. So it was an awesome race. The broadcast was just phenomenal. It's free to watch. I highly recommend everyone go check it out. It was insane.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well,
All right.
is there anything else
Yeah,
you want
that's
to?
all I got.
Let's
No, that's about all I got for that.
Nice.
It was an exciting race. The races each were about 2.5 to 3 hours. A really good thing to watch if you're on a trainer.
Yeah,
Check it
good
out.
passive viewing too. Like if everybody's
Yeah,
from like a work from home right now, I always think like there's some things you could just kind of throw on. Like the tour is like another really great event like that. Throw it on, you can kind of check in once in a while you're working. It's not too distracting. You can see the big highlights. It reminds me of like one of those kind of races.
yeah. And with the $100,000 prize purse, like these guys were
Just
this is
killing
this is like
themselves
their
probably,
salary.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is their salary for the year. There's no races. So this is what they need to like make money this year. So everyone just showed up, in the best fitness of their life.
Yeah, absolutely unreal. So yeah, super super cool event. Maybe that's the next one. I think the only reason why I didn't watch this one is I was actually watching. There was an F1 race on that was running in uh
At
in
the same
in
time, yeah.
tandem. But otherwise, I
Hmm.
think I'll try to catch the next one.
Might not be for a while.
We'll see. Yeah, I guess they don't have one on the calendar yet, but next time there is one
No.
for sure.
Yep.
All right, Ryan. Well, should we talk a little bit about the Zwift first inaugural World Championships?
Yep. Let's do it.
All
Do we
right.
want to start with the winners, or do you want to kind of go from the start?
Yeah, well, let's go from the start. Let's go from the women's race. So the women's race happened first. Um,
The one thing I want to mention about the women's race
yeah,
is that so the U.S. didn't win, but they they got four people in the top 10. I mean,
yeah, they
the U.S. in cycling esports right now is killing it.
Yeah, for sure. And so with Zwift racing, and this is kind of a theme that we've talked about in the past. Zwift racing is really weird because breakaways are extremely rare. Like even like a breakaway getting away from the main group is extremely rare. And with the women's race, it was actually pretty crazy because the group. So I think there was, like a little over 60 riders in the women's field and the men's field. The group got
I got the list up right now. There's 50 people in each
Okay,
race.
well, okay, got it. But what's crazy though is that within the first half of the race, some of the best World Tour women cyclists were dropped out of the main group. Annemiek van
Hmm.
Vleuten and Anna van der Breggen, who have won multiple championships individually in either the time trial or the road race. Yeah, they did not make it into the winning move. And the group of 25 riders that were able to actually contest the win, which is kind of something that we goes back to like what we've been saying is like it's a completely different sport. It's a
One thing,
one from cycling.
one thing I want to mention is Annika Langvad took sixth, and
Yes,
she is a mountain
she's a
biker.
mountain biker.
I
Yes.
I think which mountain biking I think would be a little bit more similar to Zwift racing because it's an hour and a half all out effort. This was an hour 13 all out effort. So mountain bike racing and this are probably not too far off. Like effort, the effort that you have to put
Yeah,
down.
100%. I totally agree with you. The announcers actually they kept equating the effort to akin to like a cyclocross race. They're like where you're kind of
Yeah, yeah.
surging, you've always got pressure on the pedals. There's not a lot of opportunities to like really not be pedaling. So that's probably what the closest analogy to or the closest like physically demanding cycling discipline would be is cyclocross. But yeah, I mean, you
Hmm.
kind of touched on it before, Ryan. The U.S. actually managed, so I think there was 8 women from on the U.S. team, and they had 8 women final group of, like I said, there was about 25 riders that were there after the first half of the race that were actually able to contest the finish. So they had all 8 riders
Hmm.
there. And looking at looking at some of the results, the top 10. Um, so it looks like yeah, they had 3 riders in the top 10. I was kind of hoping that they were going to maybe be a little bit more aggressive having that many bodies, if that makes sense. So the race ended with a kind of a short and steep climb. And like I said, they had all 8 women in the lead up to that climb. I was kind of thinking that they might have tried to maybe burn a couple riders like with really aggressive breakaways and some, like I said, just more aggressive tactics. But I think the
I don't think they're racing as a team though.
well,
I
they
think
they're on
this
dis
is more of an individual
they are
effort.
on Discord, so that is like something that was mentioned, and I guess it's not it's
Oh,
who
okay.
knows if that's actually what they were doing. But
Sure.
like supposedly all of these teams were kind of in their own individual Discord channels with their teammates. But yeah,
Hmm.
I think you're right. I think everybody was kind of racing for their own win in some regards. You had some of the U.S. women went off and kind of did some attacks on the climbs, but nobody was really able to put in like a really aggressive like big move off the front. And the winner, who was Ashley Mulliman Passio, was definitely the strongest of that group. I mean, looking at her results, she did 4.4 watts per kilogram. She put a really hard attack in on the last climb up to the finish and was able to hold off Sarah Giganti for the win. So it was a great race. I thought it was really exciting actually. And like we've been talking about too, it was a great time. It was an hour long, so there was plenty going on, and you kind of got to see like the big important points of the races. Um, but it wasn't.
Oh, that's one thing I wanted to
Oh
touch on
yeah,
quick is these weren't broadcasted from start to finish. Each race was you only really saw about the last 30 minutes,
yes,
which made it really, really watchable.
yeah, that's 100% true. Although one thing is for Zwift racing, you've got to show the start of the race. So with Zwift
Yeah.
racing, it's
Hmm.
it's really hot out of the gate. It's a super aggressive start. Typically, there's like some really hard digs being put in just within the first couple kilometers. I think it's super important that they show the start of the race. But yeah, I mean, to your point as well, though, you saw the last 30 minutes of it, super compact, super aggressive, and overall good racing.
Yeah, it was great. The finish of these races, because they show the watts and the watts per kilogram, the heart rate. It really makes you feel like how hard of an effort it is at the end of these Zwift races when because we've talked about it before, like it's not a sprint, it's a 1 minute effort.
Right.
and to see the types of watts that they put out in that last minute, like I feel that in my soul.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when they pan over to some of like the webcams where you see people absolutely dying on their indoor trainer. You really, I mean, and especially, with how accessible Zwift racing is, you know exactly what that feeling is, where you're just absolutely annihilating yourself in your living room, in your garage, in a closet next to your attic, like just trying to like get the win or get on the podium. It's a very relatable feeling, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I really gotta give it up to Ashley Pazio, Mullman Pazio. Her interview after the race was phenomenal. Um, she didn't take this as it's Zwift. It's not really bike racing. She gave an interview that was really focused around this is the future. The younger generation is really behind this. I think this has a lot of leverage in the cycling community, especially right now. And she was really a great
And she
ambassador.
pops she popped
I loved it.
champagne
I loved it.
on the
And she,
interview.
yeah,
She literally pulled out a bottle of champagne and popped it on the webcam, which is baller move right there.
like sprayed it and everything
Yeah.
like that. Like, what a way. Nobody asked her to do that. Nobody asked her to talk good about the cycling e-racing, but I mean, for someone in the community, especially the world champion now, to give like an interview like that, to like the additional entertainment value that brought to the world championships, like that was phenomenal.
Absolutely, and I mean, she's definitely one of my new favorite women's racers for sure. And she's not like you said it there too. Like she's a full time, professional women's road racer. She races for the SD Works team. That's at least her team going into 2021. She's been on the women's world tour for quite a while now, a couple of years. So she's legit. Like she's a very strong cyclist, and for her to take it serious is really cool, because it would have been pretty lame to just see, like just an average World Tour pro kind of rock up, win, and be like, yeah, it's like it is what it is. But I think the perception of e-racing has really changed, and people are seeing now that like, oh, there's a lot of potential for this to be like a legitimate career path as well. If you think about it, I mean, like who knows? I don't think anybody right now is making a full-time gig or living out of being a professional e-racer. But the prize pool for this was like $8,000. So
You know where the money is going to go to with like Zwift? It's because like with Zwift, companies can now sell accessories, and that's where they make their
it's a
money.
it's a way,
They can sell
yes,
you the
a
trainer.
100%. I totally agree.
And I think that's where it's going to really start to blow up, is when companies invest in this and pay the riders, and that's where their marketing budgets are going to, because it's easier to sell trainer. I feel like it's easier to sell trainers. It's easier to sell trainer accessories, trainer tires, all this. How much stuff do you need, or do you want for just indoor training?
Yeah.
And then, everyone's still going to go outside in the summer and stuff, but I feel like indoor training is really on the rise right now. Companies are going to start to realize that, and they're going to really put in effort, and that's where their money's going to go towards. And I think that's also where they're going to see where they can make the money. So, the whole bike industry is surrounded, around selling the bike right
Uh-huh.
now. Once they realize how many accessories and stuff they can sell with indoor training, I think e-racing, because of that, like, pros are going to start looking at e-racing because that's where the money is. You know, uh, People are going to start, watching e-racing because they're doing the same races the pros are. On a given Tuesday night, you might be racing with a pro.
A
You
hundred
know,
percent. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one, Ryan. Like, I think about it this way. So I was actually listening to a recent interview, and to add to your point, one of the most dominant both men's and women's race teams right now is Ceres, the pros closet cycling team. So you've got one trainer company, Ceres, and then the Pros Closet, who's a company that sells used cycling equipment, already getting behind and forming a really strong team. But like for example, Chris Froome winning the Tour de France, I think most people would say it's not going to convince them to buy a Pinarello cycling bike. It's $10,000 bike.
Yeah.
Chris Froome,
Hmm.
what he can do on a bike, and I mean, it's just hard to like bridge that gap. But think about Chris Froome live streaming his races and talking about the trainer that he's using. I mean, that's an experience that Chris Froome can share and that actually has more weight
Yeah.
because that's like I'm going to have the same experience riding on a trainer, or I want more input on the trainer because we'll
Hmm.
have the same experience. What does the road feel like? How does it handle Zwift? As opposed to a $10,000 carbon bike, which won't make a difference for
Yeah.
me, but a nice trainer certainly will. So it,
And you know what? You know what goes viral is Chris Froome's pain cave.
yeah, yeah,
That's super hot right now is show off your pain cave. You know what doesn't go viral is the sticker decals that they put on his Pinarello this
right,
year.
right.
Do you know what decals they put on his Pinarello this
I
year?
have no
Because I
idea.
don't.
Yeah, and
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like they'll post like his bike for the year, and to be honest, I scroll past it. But if he posts his pain cave,
check it
like
out.
I'm looking through that, seeing what he has and stuff. Like, oh, I wonder like what he has might benefit me. You know, I'm not going to go out and buy a $10,000 Pinarello, but if he has like a new towel thing that covers your handlebars and stuff, I might see that and go, oh, that looks
Yeah,
useful.
100%. I totally agree with you there. I think the progression of what will eventually be the full-time e-racer, the full-time Zwift racer, I think that progression is going to really parallel the progression of like the full-time esports athlete. If you were to
Yeah.
rewind and look back at like 2010, if people were making money playing video games, how are they making money? Well, the best people would show up and win tournaments. And that's kind of where cycling is right now. How do people make any money at all e-racing? Well, the best cyclists show up and they win these tournaments. And we saw that today. The men and the women, I think they took, like I said, like 8,000 euro, I think was the prize. So, not a lot of people can make a living out of winning 8,000 euro here and there. But
But I also want to say, like, $8,000 for a race win out of 50 people, that's actually like really
with
good compared
and
to
with
other
no
prize money.
with
Because
no
prize,
need to travel, no need to put yourself in danger
yeah,
with like a in real life bike race. I mean, all things considered,
the costs to run these e races are almost
yeah,
none. I mean, you have to have the
yeah,
broadcast, but I mean, the cost of a broadcast versus all the travel, hotels, the setup of the courses, the shutting down of roads, the police officers, there's so much that goes into a bike race. Like, that's all
100%.
eliminated. Like,
And well,
yeah,
I
I don't know. I feel like this is like one big rant, but I mean, like I'm like
I
so
am too.
excited
But kind
about
of back to
this.
my point, like that, I think the progression is going to be streaming and developing kind of a more like a more personal brand and broadcasting your racing, your training, your rides, much like people in the video game community eventually figured out like, well, I can make money winning tournaments, but I can also make more money streaming, doing analysis, like kind of creating my own little community and people can interact and make donations. I think there's
Hmm.
a real path for that, and I think that's a way where I think e-cycling is going to start paralleling the history of gamers making money and a living through streaming and more ways outside of direct competition, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I feel like too, just like in gaming, I think we're going to see a lot of young guys do a lot of e-racing, and we're going to see a huge surge in like younger, like the 18, 19, 20 year olds. I think are going to be the ones who are at the top of e-racing because a lot of these guys who are world tour right now, I don't think they buy into it. It's the younger generation that's going to be like, let's do some e-racing when they had the Zwift Pro Series going on. They're going to be the ones that on top of racing outdoors, they're going to do the
Uh,
Zwift
and
Series indoors
and it's
because
economics
why
too,
not?
right? If you're a world tour pro, especially a high profile one on the men's side of things, you can still make more money with a pro road contract than you can e-racing. I mean, just economics aside, right now,
Right now,
right?
at least.
So for them, like I kind of understand why they're not buying into it. It's like, well, I need to make my money as a really high caliber road racer. So maybe there isn't the intense interest there right now, but we'll see how that changes. But that's probably a pretty good segue into the men's race, which was also
Oh, I totally forgot we didn't
not
talk about the
yet, which
men's
was
race
also a
yet.
great race. Ryan, what did you think about the men's race?
The thing that stood out to me was the
Yes.
Canadians. They were aggressive. Unfortunately, at the end of results, they didn't do great. The best place was 19th. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. Lionel Sanders was there. He made an attack up the final hill that didn't go very well. He took 30th. Some big names in the men's field. The significant thing here is no big names in the top 10. You have smaller big names like Nicholas Pedersen. I've heard his name before from Denmark. He took third, but besides that, no big names in the top 10. I mean, I'm going down the list, and the first big name I see is Rigoberto Urán, who took 25th, and then Victor Campagnarts took 31st. Tom Pedock took 32nd. Edville Bosenhagen, 35th. Uh, Wisconsin's own Jaden Yeager actually raced
Yeah,
and took
he
39th.
was in the final group for the
Yeah.
last contest up the final climb for the finish. So that's kudos to him for even making it that far into the
Mm-hmm.
race. It was a very brutal race.
Yeah.
But I think you touched on something that was really interesting and something that I definitely noticed with this race was that the World Tour pros they tried to win the race or they tried to race the race like they were trying to win a real life race. So if you noticed like over one of the climbs, Tom Pedock, he kind of made a move. He tried to get off the front. Victor Benertz, he definitely also tried to put in some attacks. Edvald Bosenhagen, they try to take advantage on the sections of the course that those riders are typically the strongest. Those are bigger riders like Bosenhagen and Campagnarts. They're very good time trialists, especially Campagnarts. So they really tried to take advantage of that and attack on the flats. And it is really hard in Zwift to get off the front period, and it's probably not going to happen on the flats. And even Michael Valgren as well. I think he's obviously a really strong rider. He kind of put some attack in towards the end of the race. A lot of these riders didn't want to come down to the final climb to decide the finish, so it seemed like they kind of spent their bullets earlier in the race before coming up to that final climb. But you could really tell who was a professional road racer and who was a dedicated e-racer because a lot of those guys were just all focused on energy conservation the entire race. You could just see them try to float, stay in the middle of the field, even when you had mentioned this before too, like Team Canada was using some awesome team tactics, trying to light it up on the climbs, trying to get off the front, doing a little team time trialing. All of these riders did their best to stay within the group, stay within the draft, and just minimize the amount of energy that they were expending in order to really punch a hole in the group coming up to the last climb. I think, that was something where a lot of these e-racers have probably done so many races just like this where they just knew. They're like, it's all about the last climb. I've just got to save energy.
Yeah. You said it great. One person I really want to highlight is the current hour record, Victor Campagnarts. He is someone that really buys into the whole e-racing thing, social media. He does a great job. He's got his own YouTube channel, similar to Alex Dowsett. He actually recently just did a
Oh,
pain
nice.
cave video, which he has a pretty impressive
That
basement.
explains why he is probably into Zwift. He's got a good setup.
He's got a
Yeah,
very nice
so
setup.
I think it's really cool. Like when you do get some of the, I mean, it's actually like really bizarre because in the same race, you had Victor Campagnarts, who is again, the world hour record holder. You had Rigoberto Urán, who's finished second in the Tour de France, and you had Wisconsin's own. We mentioned him before, Jaden Yeager, who's like a local legend. He's one of the best cyclists that's ever come out of the state. And like, why? Not to mention all of the other national, international champions in that race. It was just like very bizarre. I don't know if you felt the same way, but it's like this is so cool. This is just so cool how
Yeah.
there's so many different athletes from so many different sports. I mean, not to mention Lionel Sanders. Like Lionel Sanders was in this race. He just got done with the other race we were talking about, the Pro Triathlon, and it's been a week, and he's racing the Zwift World Championships and making it animated. Like he was attacking, he was putting in moves. Like we said, Team Canada, trying to make the race. It was just cool, man. I was into it.
Yeah. And I mean, shout out to Jaden Yeager. That's a dude who he works as an
Yeah,
engineer, and he is racing at the Zwift World Championships with legit World Tour pros. I mean, 39th out of 50, like I mean, it's not the best result, but I mean, come on, he made it until the final,
I'll
probably
say
last
I'm not.
kilometer,
I was not a huge fan
which,
of this being an uphill finish because I've seen a lot of Zwift races, and I think fast sprint finishes are just so much more interesting. I don't know if you feel the same way, but
yeah,
I
I'm
really
indifferent.
love
I'm
like
indifferent.
watching kind of the cat and mouse game that is like the Zwift sprint finish because a lot of it is just getting the timing right. It's using your power ups correctly. I think if we would have seen even like a climb to longer, flatter finish, it would have been a very different result. Like we kind of talked about Jaden. He's a bigger guy. He's a diesel. He likes to roll the flats, and then even a lot of the other guys, and especially like Team USA, a lot of the riders that they picked are bigger riders. I know we had Ryan Larson from the US. He got ninth, which was a great result. But yeah, I think it just would have been a very different race, being more of a traditional flat Zwift finish. Um, but yeah, and the winner actually Jason Osborne, from Germany, who is actually a rowing world champion. Did you know that?
I did actually. He is not even a
I don't
professional
understand the
bike racer.
crossover between rowing and being a really good cyclist.
It's so when in rowing, it looks like you're using your upper body, but I believe it's like 75
Oh
or
wow,
80% lower body. So it's a very similar VO2 effort. So like they're really good at like 3 to 5 minute
that makes
VO2
sense.
efforts.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, they have like massive VO2 maxes. So a lot of it transfers over to
Yeah, and a lot of
bike
sports where
racing.
you use both your upper and lower body aerobically, you tend to have a bigger VO2 max. I mean, we personally have raced against and known a couple people that have transitioned from rowing to cycling, and it seems like everybody is able to just, transition flawlessly and become a really good cyclist.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Any
Um,
last thoughts?
yeah, man, I think that's it for me. Just this really solid race, e-racing. I'm here for it. I'm all in it. Um, I think Bike Race Weekly, we're gonna start doing. Well, start. We already really
This
have.
weekend. Yep, this weekend.
Saturday is pretty much always going to be a race day for us, so we'll start posting out when we plan on racing. We have a Discord channel. You can find that in our
Yep.
Instagram bio. So if you feel like hopping on our Discord, and chatting while we race. We can all race together. We can just chat too. That's cool. And we also now have so if you have Zwift Power, feel free to join our team. It's open to anybody. You can find it under Beer League Bike Racing, and you can find that under BLBR as the acronym.
Yeah. We will be getting out our first Zwift strategy race analysis video this weekend. I am still trying to figure out how to do it, but I think I'm pretty excited for it. I think it's going to turn out pretty well. So I will try to get that up by Sunday. I'm going to be racing Saturday, and hopefully edit and add commentary Saturday night. So check that out. Follow our YouTube channel at Bike Racing Weekly, I believe, and follow the rest of our
All
social
right.
media as
Well,
well.
with that, I think we're going to wrap it up. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll catch you next episode.
See you later.